My name is Sabrina Carter. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be painting this beautiful mountainscape. It's a spring mountainscape, and it's going to be pretty simple. You're going to do this while you're eating your Sorelle's dinner and drinking your Sorelle's wine. So when you're ready, the first thing we're going to do is make sure we have everything that we need for this take and paint. We've got an 8x10 canvas here. Here we've got our colors. We've got a blue color, a red, green, yellow, black, and white. We also have two brushes, at least two brushes. I've got a larger size one and a smaller size one. We're going to use the large, of course, to paint that background color in some of our larger areas, and our smaller brush to get the detail into the bottom and into some of the mountain. We also have a paper towel here because we're going to need that to dry our brush in between cleaning from paint to paint, and a cup of water. Okay, if you're ready, I'm ready, let's get started. I'm going to take my canvas and my large brush, and I'm going to start with this blue color. As you can see here, we've got a dark blue that kind of fades down into a light blue. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm putting that blue into my canvas, is mix just a little bit of black in on the top. And then when I come down, I'll mix the white in, but let's start with this. Okay, and I like to use my water to make sure that my paint is fluid. And I only need to go about halfway down the canvas. So I've got my blue going in. It's nice and fluid with all that water I've added, and I'm mixing just a tiny bit of black into my blue to get a darker color. Okay, and what we also want to do is make sure we're getting our edges, because we're going to wrap our border on this. Okay, so you can see there I'm going to get the top, and I'm also going to get the sides. Okay, that darker blue is going to be on your top there. And then you're going to bring it down. Okay, that middle blue will be down in the center. And then we'll wash our brush, dry it, because that black really sticks to your brush. We want to wash it and make sure it's nice and dry. Then add a little bit of white to some of your blue to get that bottom color, that bottom blue. All right, make sure you get those edges. So this is going to be a very wet start. So go over it just a few times as you're waiting for some areas to dry. The more water you use, the longer you're going to have to wait for the drying. So there we've got a nice fade. I like even just a little bit more white peeking over my mountains. So I'm just going to take the straight white. Before it's even dry, take just the white by itself and work it in there. There we go. Okay. There's the start of our spring mountainscape. While we're letting that dry just a bit, we're going to clean our brush and get into our next color. And that is going to be with your small brush. You're gonna take that small brush, and what you're gonna do with it is work out a mountain line, okay? They can be different shapes. They don't have to be exactly this. You can make it however you like it. The one I do here is not going to look like this one here. So we're just gonna go ahead and start throwing some lines in there with a darker blue. So you're gonna take the blue over to the black this time. Okay, and I want it to go just above this line because I don't want to see any white in between my mountain peaks. Okay, so I'm going to go above the line, start here, and I'll just kind of let my hand figure out what I want this mountainscape to do. You can have double peaks, triple peaks. You can have just a little meandering mountain line, small. But I like to put at least one big peak in there, and that's going to be that one here. Okay, so I've got my mountainscape. It's nice and clear. You can see my dark blue up here in the sky, and you can see just above the mountains a little bit of that white that I put in there. We're going to go back to the big brush. So we're going to take this big brush here, and we're going to color in these mountains with a very dark blue. So I'm going to take that black again, mix it into my blue. Okay, get a color that you like. And then what I'm going to do is just fill it all in. Okay, follow that mountain line that you've created and fill the whole thing in. And this one you can bring down most of the way onto your canvas. I would say about leave a third of the canvas for your nice spring grass in the front there. Okay, very dark, because we're going to work light on top of the dark, and we want to see some of those little cavey areas, those little nooks inside of your mountainscape. Get some water on your brush to help that paint flow. And we're going to also take that around your edge here on both sides. Okay, fill it in. You see that this skyline it's drying here as you're working down here, so you don't have to wait very long for this to dry. You're not going to touch it yet. You're not going to come back to this until the very end to put those clouds in. Okay. Now this mountain you're going to be working on top of, so you're going to want to give that a little bit of dry time in between your different shades of blue and white. Don't be afraid to take some black and just patch it in there for some really dark areas. Does not have to be perfect because no mountainscape is. They're all going to be unique. So I like the way that looks. And it may look a little washy in here, but you're going to build on top of it, so I wouldn't worry too much about what it looks like at this point. As it builds, you're going to get more dimension in those crevices of your mountain. All right. So I've got a nice dark mountain there. What I want to do now is wash my brush. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to work with my smaller brush next. And I'm going to put a few different shades in there of blue and, of course, some of that white snowy peak. So we're drying a little bit here, and we're going to go ahead and take some blue. I'm going to go with the blue, the original blue on its own. And with that, I'm just going to work in some color. And I like to work down the side of the mountain. So I like to go kind of one side to the next. Okay. And I like it to wiggle a little bit. So I just kind of wiggle it down the side of the mountain. I'm going to get these sides over here. All right, and then when I work in the middle here, you can see that I've got several layers of mountains. So I've got a set in the front. So I'm just going to pretend that there is a peak here, a foreground peak, and I'm going to work down the sides of that peak, okay? Pick your peaks just the same way that you did with your mountain line. Just put them wherever you feel comfortable putting them. Okay? I'm going to go with another shade of blue. You can make as many shades as you like, but I like to do at least 2 or 3. And I'm going to take my white for a lighter shade of blue. And I'm going to work that just alongside the blues, that original blue that I put in there, top and bottom. Okay, on both sides of all of my peaks, on the top, on the bottom, and I'm going to wiggle it still. I just like the way that that wiggle gives kind of a natural shape to the mountain. I don't like straight lines in here. You don't want to do that. Okay, and now I'll just go back and forth with some of these blues to fill it in. You can see I'm not washing my brush very much in here because I like the mix of the colors to kind of come together on the canvas. So I'm going to go straight white, hit some mountain peaks, and then I can go straight to the black as well. You don't want to go from black to white, but you can go from white to black. So I'm going to take some black. I'm going to get it darker in some areas. You can see all the layering is building up here. And so you're losing that washy mountain that you had there before. So I'm tucking my black back here at the bottom of those peaks that I created. So I've got my blacks down in the bottom here too. Okay. There's the bottom of this peak, and then the bottom of this one. Okay, remember I have 2 sets. All right. Now you can play with those mountains a bit until you feel happy with them. And I'm almost there. I want a little bit more white on the top. See, I just washed my brush because I had black on it, and you don't want to mix that with your white. You won't get a white then. We've got a lot of snow in this one down here and a little bit up here. So how much snow do you want in your mountainscape? Put as much white as you like in there. I like this right here. I'm going to start with that. You can always come back to it later and change up some of those cavernous areas and also add a little bit more snow to your peak. But for now, this is where I'm going to go with it. When we come down here to the bottom, we are going to prepare by washing our brushes. We're going to move to that bigger brush. This one here is what I'm going to use. And we don't really have to wait for this to dry because we're not going to touch it for a while. Okay, so while this is drying, we can just move straight down to this area here. And we're going to do that by layering the whole thing just the way we did with the top, but with green. We're just going to wash that whole area with green. So I've got green here. And I'm going to use my water again to make that more liquid to help it flow. And I want to get it pretty dark. So with my green, I'm going to mix some of that black in. We're going to work lighter greens on top of that. So I know I started with this light green here, but I remembered that we want to go from dark to light. So now I've got a darker green in there. So we're going to go ahead and spread that all the way across, and again around your edges there. Make it meet those mountains there. On the bottom as well. And I'm going to catch my fingers in a minute, so I'm going to do my edges and then I'll rest it on my easel to do the rest. It helps to hold your canvas when you're going around those edges. Okay, I don't want to leave any white space. None of the canvas is going to show. Okay, and again, the more water you put on there, the longer it's going to take to dry. So I've got all of my edges there. I'm going to go ahead and set it back up here. Okay, I'm just kind of dragging that water across so that I can help it to dry a little faster. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush at this point, and we're going to be going into our variety of greens. And so we'll need the small brush to do that. All right. Now here, like I said, we're going to want to work from our dark up to our light. And here you can see that I've got my light colors, my light green colors. Look past those flowers for now. I've got my light green at the tips, on the tips of my meadow, and I've got my dark green down below. So we're going to work from the bottom up in our meadow with dark green to light green. So we're going to want to prepare our greens here by adding some black. Get a nice green, a nice dark green that you like. Just the way we did in our mountains, we can also just use black in some areas to give it real depth. So I've got a nice dark green here that I like. And right on top of that wet, it's dried a little bit. It takes not very long for acrylic paint to dry. So right over that wet, I'm going to start working in, because that wet is going to help me to blend some of these colors together as I work from dark to light. So now I've got, my paint is thicker here. And with a smaller brush, your paint is going to pile on a lot more. So I've got a thicker paint, and I'm just doing some strokes, some grassy strokes. And like I said, you can use some of that straight black. Okay, and I'm doing that on the bottom part of my meadow, across the whole bottom. You're going to have 2 to 3 more greens going in here. So don't focus on the green that you have now. It's going to start to disappear. Some of that dark is going to start to disappear, but you'll see peaks of it. Just little pops of shade in there. So I do like that dark color in there. It's like a little nook in the grass, like maybe something's hiding back there. Makes it a little bit more realistic for me to think that there are things in there. All right, so we're moving from our dark green up into a medium green. For that, I like the original green that I have here, but I just want some of that dark to stay with it. So I'm going to move it over. I'm just moving it over into the green to lighten it up a bit. And I'm going to do that same grassy stroke all the way across. And you see the dark kind of drags in. So I have to refill my brush as I go across. And I just want my green to come down into those areas, and then on top of some of those other areas where I already have that dark green in. So I've got the light, that medium green that pops in and out. Wherever you see that washy green in the background, you want to make sure you take some of your thicker paint and cover those areas. Okay. And I just want to go back in with some of that dark green and bring it up into the light. I want to work back and forth so that they meet each other. Okay, I like that. Now I'm going to go with a lighter green up on the top. So for that, I will do my original green, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white and sometimes a little bit of yellow. That yellow just gives it a sunshiny look. And here I'm not going to wash my brush either because I want those colors to mix onto the canvas. It's okay for it to mix there because that gives it that dimension we were talking about. So a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to fill most of this in with my original green. And I'm doing those same grassy strokes. And I want it to not stop at that edge that we created, not that line, but I want it to come just over that line. Okay, we don't want to see a straight line. Okay, and we're touching all of those washy green spaces in with our brush. We don't want to see any of that washy green space. We're going to fill it all in. Just over the top of the line there. Use some water to give it some flow on your canvas, but not too much because here's where we want it to stay thick. We want it to have some dimension on the canvas. Do check to see that your paints are not drying up though. If they are, you can add water into them to loosen it up again. They're gonna get thick the longer it takes you to paint this. So if you decide to stop your video and you wanna take some time in between, have some of your meal, this can be covered with saran wrap, or you can just add some water to it when you come back and it'll loosen up again. So I'm going to give a little bit of sunshine to the top of this. A little sunshine in my grass. Okay, and then again, I'm going to work back and forth now. I've got my medium and then I've got my original green, so I'm going to work with some of that medium in the center. And once you've got this in here, you've only got one step left, and that's going to be our beautiful blue and red flowers in the foreground of our meadow. So you're going to want to give this just a little bit of time to dry before we get to those flowers. In the meantime, you'll wash your brushes and dry your brushes. And just give it a few minutes. It should only take about 3 to 5 minutes before it's ready for you to get into the next color. We're ready to put our flowers in now. So we're gonna start with these red flowers first. I'm gonna take my red, and I like to have a little bit of white on the tip of it. So I'm just gonna kind of go back and forth as I work here. And I'm gonna start, you can see that these flower petals are kind of going up. So what I'm going to do is kind of do a center petal and then on both sides like this. They're going to get bigger as they go down and they're pointing upwards, though I am dragging them down and in. All right, so I'm going back and forth here with my red and white, and I'm going to give it a little space. I'm going to just put some flowers spaced out in there. I want some in the back. I'm going to start with the tip. And these ones are going to have smaller petals because they're further back. And I'm just going to bring it down left and right. And the white in there kind of helps it to stand out. That's why I'm adding that white. Okay, and I'll just do a couple of these in different areas. Okay, some of them are going to be long and they're going to come all the way down the bottom. And some of them will be shorter, like that one there. Okay, just going to put maybe like half a dozen reds, half a dozen blues. If you are working with a bigger canvas at home, fill it up. You're going to need a lot more flowers in there. I'll put another one over here. All right, and I might want one just falling off the edge over here to look like it's really wrapping around the sides. And I might even actually wrap it around the side there. Okay, so I like the way that number of flowers looks. So I'm going to go ahead and dry my small brush because we're going to use that for our blue flowers next. I'm going to wash and dry it. And then the same way we did work with that red, we're going to work with our blue, going back and forth from blue to white. So I've got a little space over here where I'm going to use my blue, and a space over here where I'm going to use my white. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth and pick a nice spot where you want a blue flower to go. And they're going to be the same type of flowers, just a different variation. It's a different color. So we've got a tip, and then we're back and forth on the sides. And those petals are pointing up. But what I'm doing here is just pulling them down. Down and in. Into the center. I like that white on there so that those flowers pop out. Oop. Okay, I like another one right here. Kind of putting them a little bit in between the reds, but not so much that it's obvious, just spacing them out a bit. And at different heights. I've got this one stops up here, this one down here, that one goes off, and I'll put another one right up here over the edge even. Oop. I want that one to be too big because it's all the way in the back there. All right. Okay, and I'll do another one over here on the side. I'm going to put it right here in the front. My petals are going to get bigger when it's going to be closer to you or further down on the canvas. My petals will get larger. There we go. Right up front. Make it a little taller too. So at this point, we might want to bring some of our grass back in. You might want to touch up your mountains. But the last thing that we really have to do here is just put a few of those wispy clouds. And we're going to do that by really watering down a white with our small brush, our clean small brush. Take some water, find a little clean space of white, get it very, very wet. Okay, and we want to start with the top of the mountain, just the top of the cloud, just like your mountainscape here. We're going to kind of get a feel for how our cloud is going to move, and then from there, bring it down. Okay, maybe even just a little bit darker at the top. Okay, I've got one there that I like. And I'll put another one over here. And then I'm bringing that watery white down. We still want to see that blue in the background here. Okay, I might even want just something to overlap. So I'll put one in between the two. Add some more water if you need it. You want it to be very light. Very light, and I'm dripping a little bit here, but it's so watery you can just kind of pick it up with your finger. Okay. Beautiful. Now we have a nice mountainscape with a grassy meadow of flowers in the foreground, and I hope you enjoyed making that with me, and I hope you'll make another with me soon. Thank you very much.
We hope you have enjoyed your evening of simple happiness at home and want to see your final product. Either email us at chaffeearts@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page to share pictures from your Take and Paint adventure. For information on future Chaffee Arts events, like us on Facebook.